The Brookfield WPCA has been pursuing a plan since 2018 to implement sewers on Candlewood Peninsula. In its quest to do so, it hired a sewer engineering consultant and is now claiming that septic systems are polluting the lake and the drinking water, and that sewers will improve both. A group of us, all homeowners who live near the lake, decided to look more carefully at the WPCA's claims, and we found those claims to be unsupported by the evidence and misleading, if not false. We undertook an independent fact-finding mission. We read every report and document on the WPCA's website. We worked with experts, including an environmental engineer, and we conducted extensive research, including talking to town officials at the other 4 towns on the lake. We also reviewed case studies of 2 lakes that recently built sewers based on similar recommendations and claims. What we found was that, contrary to the WPCA's claims, the lake is actually relatively healthy. There was no evidence that septics are causing any pollution to the lake. In fact, the evidence shows that replacing septics with sewers would have virtually 0 impact on the lake. Furthermore, we noted that the language in the reports in the WPCA's claim seemed intentionally biased to justify the WPCA's plan to promote sewers. In the 2 other files, we explain and show in detail how we came to our conclusions, and we encourage you to look at those presentations when you have time. In this file, we will only go over the summary conclusions. So what evidence does the WPCA rely on for its claims? They relied on 2 pieces of evidence, 2 photos, and a calculation of how much phosphorus is discharged by septics into the lake. In both cases, when examined carefully, the evidence does not support the WPCA's claims. Actually, to the contrary, it shows that sewers would have virtually no impact on the lake. The photos show an increase in phosphorus level from June 2012 to August 2013. Without any evidence, the WPCA inexplicably says that because the 2013 photo was taken after a period of no rain, that such increase must be due to septic discharge. Apart from the fact that there's no evidence to support the statement, and that such photos were taken 10 years ago, 14 months apart, not after a period of no rain, we show that it is mathematically and scientifically impossible for the septics alone to be the cause of such increase. So what caused such increase? As we explain in the full version, and as other studies have shown, the reason is that the lake sediment, which releases phosphorus as the lake warms from June to August, is the main source of phosphorus in the lake. The other evidence the WPCA uses is a calculation of how much phosphorus is discharged into the lake by septics. This is a key piece of evidence because it shows what the impact of removing septics would be. Their consultant calculated that all the homes in the peninsula discharge 287 pounds per year into the lake. According to the consultant, that equates to approximately 8% of the amount that could be safely absorbed by the lake. Now, how much of a difference it would make to the lake if we removed 8% of the phosphorus, we don't know, but if it's accurate, it's a factor that should be considered. However, when we examined the WPCA's calculation carefully, we noticed some strange figures and assumptions that seemed inappropriate, if not incorrect. We go into detail on this in the full version, but for example, instead of using the actual test results from his borings on the peninsula, he used figures based on 10-year averages in Massachusetts, which have no relevance to Candlewood Lake and the peninsula. And there were a couple of other similar inappropriate assumptions used. After adjusting with appropriate figures, we got dramatically lower results. Instead of 287 pounds, we got 11 to 27 pounds per year. And instead of 8%, this equated to only 0.15% of the amount a healthy lake could absorb. In other words, sources other than septics contributed 99.9% of phosphorus to the lake. What would be the impact of replacing septics with sewers? Well, the phosphorus level in the lake would be reduced by 0.1%. In other words, the impact on the lake would be virtually 0. As to how the lake is assessed by independent agencies, Connecticut Deep rates the lake satisfactory, its highest rating. CLA, the Candlewood Lake Authority, in 2020 said the lake is very healthy. It had the best clarity in the past 20 years. None of the officials from the other towns on the lake that we contacted agreed with the WPCA's claims that septics were causing pollution, and none had any plans to even consider sewers. Lastly, we looked at actual results and experiences of 2 lakes that built sewers. Both were similarly told by sewer consulting firms that septics were causing pollution, and both were told that sewers would fix that. In both cases, 10 years and tens of millions of dollars after sewers were built, the phosphorus levels in the lakes not only did not improve, they got worse. In the end, they had to take alternative measures to address the real causes of pollution, the stormwater runoff and the lake sediment. The bottom line, there is no evidence, not the photos, the calculation, nor anything else in reports that supports the WPCA's claims that septics are the cause of pollution to the lake. And no other officials or agencies agree with the WPCA's claims. Building sewers will have virtually zero impact on the phosphorus level of Candlewood Lake. Other lakes that built sewers found this to be the case years later. That does not mean, however, that we should do nothing. We should be addressing the real issues. We should be focusing on the issues like lake sediment and stormwater runoff, which are the real potential dangers to the lake. As to drinking water, the WPCA claims that septics are responsible for elevated nitrate levels and presence of PFOA and PFOSs, which we refer to as PF chemicals. We agree these issues have to be addressed, but as we explain and show in the longer version, the WPCA's claims that septics are responsible and that sewers will fix these issues are not supported by any of the evidence. We found that removing septics might reduce the level of nitrates, but by how much, it was hard to tell. There was no evidence and no one knows. And removing septics will have no impact on the presence of PF chemicals. PF chemicals are industrial chemicals. They're not human byproduct, and they are virtually in every water body in the world. Septics are simply irrelevant to this discussion. PF chemicals are hazardous to our health, and this is an issue for every community in the U.S., not just the peninsula. Bottom line, we need to investigate further these drinking water issues now. And sewers are totally irrelevant to this discussion, meaning even if sewers were built, these issues would remain and have to be addressed. There are, however, viable alternative solutions. They were mentioned by the consultant, but the WPCA ignored them. For example, such as getting an alternate water supply or getting filters to reduce nitrates and PF chemicals. And these options are cheaper, faster, and more importantly, more effective than sewers in fixing the drinking water issues. And that really is what we should be focusing and directing our attention to, not the septics and sewers. In closing, the WPCA board members are appointed by town officials, and they owe a fiduciary duty to Brookfield residents to be diligent, honest, and transparent, and they should be held accountable for the validity of their claims. We urge you to contact the WPCA Brookfield town officials, as well as other Connecticut officials, and request that they get independent verification of the claims being made by the WPCA before any further work or any additional monies are spent on this project. We thank you for listening, and we hope you stay involved.